Boys, gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Baby guys, we have day 5 of the boot camp. Now, if you aren't up to date, definitely go on the channel, check out day 1 through day 4. Guys, in today's video, we are speaking about pretty much entries and confirmations. Okay, we're pretty much just going to be like tying a lot of what we have spoken about as far as technicals go and market structure and things along those lines together to actually enter the market and things along those lines like stop losses, take profits. Going to be a really good video. Now, before we get into that, guys, you guys can see here, I literally just took a position on AU today. We were literally in the position for like 7 minutes, bro. Literally entered right here, got out quick 3 to 1. I literally sent out the not in there, boys, and the free side, literally in the Discord, you guys can see here. We got in at 12:54. TP ended up getting smashed at London Open. It was crazy. Made a couple $100 early in just a couple minutes. I'm usually not in positions like that shorts just because we had like an influx of volume, obviously with the Open of London. But with that being said, like we can even just go over this one in this entry model, kind of what went into it. But before we do that, something I want to talk about is, guys, the way I trade, okay, is literally like it's so basic, it's actually mind-boggling. Like I could literally explain this to like a third grader and they'd be able to understand it. But with that being said, why? Why is it that I trade this way before even getting into it? Guys, it's because I've come to realize in being in the markets for literally 4 to 5 years at this point that a majority of what it actually means to be successful in trading has to actually do with your psychology and not really anything to do with the charts, okay? So even though, we're going to talk about technicals and we're going to talk about entry models and things along those lines, understand, bro, that the reason I am profitable and the reason that you see profitable traders, yes, it is their edge. Yes, it is, risk management and things along those lines. But the most important thing of it all is their trading psychology, okay? Because it doesn't matter what kind of strategy you have, doesn't matter how good the fucking entries are, things along those lines. Dude, if you don't have great market psychology and you're always going to be on tilt, you're taking more than like 1, 2 positions a day, like big lessons like that I had to learn, where you're just completely always going off tilt, and that will over exceed any strategy, anything along those lines. Before, like, you're basically, your psychology is the most important thing, is what I'm trying to get across in the most simple way. Everything else like won't matter if your psychology is not in check. Okay, so gentlemen, with that being said, one thing I want to talk about briefly before we get into the entry models is understanding that the market is fractal. Okay, I talk about this briefly in the video where we talk about market structure, but for the most part, what do I mean by the market is fractal? What I mean, guys, is everything that you see on the weekly, on the monthly, on the daily, on the 4 hour, you're also going to see on every single time frame. Okay, on the second, on the minute, on the 5 minute. It doesn't matter because it's patterns inside of patterns inside of patterns, right? So, for example, if we have this overarching big trend, we're going to see the market fractal within that trend, right? And then another trend inside of that trend, and then another trend inside of that trend, and so forth and so on. Okay, so just really basic concept that I want to talk about before anything. Now, getting into actual entry models and things along those lines, let's see if we can go on to maybe something that's really, really clean for you guys to understand. Okay, let's see if we can go into like, yeah, let's just do this. Euro USD, for example, guys. Okay, so we're on the 4 hour right now. And before we're really doing like an entire top-down analysis, let's just kind of analyze this, right? We know that we're trading like supply and demand, simple market structure, and things along those lines, right? Understanding where really we can assume for price to go. Now, the first thing that stands out to me is we have basically this huge area here that on a higher time frame, I'll show you guys in a second, is probably an imbalance zone. But on the 4 hour, what do we have? We have this right here. We have this demand zone. You guys can see we got this last down candle before this significant basically just like a significant, like price reacted strongly from this point, right? And when we broke down supply and demand. Now, if we go to like the daily, for example, right, and do the same thing, what can we see? We can see that the demand zone, again, is right here. Now, let's make this like a blue, right? Let's make this like a blue. Actually, let's not make this blue. Let's make this like a purple because I think I have blue outlined on here already. And then, for example, what we could do now, right, to make this like really just organized is we can put here daily. Oh, did not mean to do that, but for the most part, what we're going to do is we are going to type out daily demand, right? I apologize, gentlemen. I can't speak right now. I can't even type right now. Mine's kind of going all over the place with the tab closing. So we got daily demand, okay, with this purple line. Now let's just go to the 12 hour, right? What do we see now on the 12 hour? Pretty much like the same thing, right? So we don't really gotta mark out another one. If we go to the 4 hour, you guys can see the one that we marked out. We have this one. So then now we'll take text and we'll do this, and we'll change this to obviously like the green one that we have here, and we'll mark out, oh no, we'll mark out 4 hour demand, right? And so this is just pretty much like organizing it and doing that like top down analysis, right? And so we kind of have an area of like, okay, this is where we want market to push into, right? We got pretty much like these imbalance areas here, as you guys can see. We have like just pretty much confirmation that this is like a really valid demand zone. So now that that's kind of been outlined, let's come over here to understanding what market's kind of doing in, like this entire area right here. Okay. So just kind of looking at this, what do I really want to identify? I want to identify now structure, okay? And so again, like really just going to the daily, what did we see happen here if we just kind of mark this out for a second, right? We can pretty much see like, okay, market was on an uptrend, right? We had this higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and then all of a sudden, what did we see happen, right? We saw market kind of shift structure. We saw a break of structure to the downside. So now this has turned into basically a lower low. Then we have a lower high. Then again, right, broken structure to the downside. We have a lower low, a lower high. Then again, breaking structure to the downside, lower low, lower high, and then so forth, so on, right? And we know that we're kind of targeting these areas, especially after like these breaks of structures to the downside. I would honestly say like specifically this one right here where we really broke structure to the downside and confirming that, okay, we're kind of like taking out these major lows over here and going to kind of come into here and fill this imbalance. And again, if we go like the 12 hour and 4 hour, you guys saw the demand zone and all of that imbalance that was in there, right? So now that let's just get rid of this, for example. Now on the daily, if we were, we can do the replay, but we don't got to like go into all that right now. We'll just keep it really simple. Where can we identify now our supply zones? So our supply zone on the daily, boys, would be right here, right? We got this last up candle before the down candle. Same thing goes here. Like you guys can see, I was doing this on a lower time frame over here. This is how I identified this entry to take market short. But then we have another one right here, right? Again, just pretty much identifying the supplies. And so now that we do that, we can go on a lower time frame. Great. Let's do it again, right? Boom. Boom. And then we go the 4 hour. We'll go down. Again, just understanding the market is fractal. This is literally why I say top-down analysis is so important, okay? If I didn't signify that already. Because you're allowing for more precision, and you're allowing to see things in greater detail, and you're trading with the trend most important, right? So now that we've done that, and we've gone from the daily 12 hour, 4 hour, we can do the same exact stuff that we did on those higher time frames on this time frame. And so now we'll identify, but we don't even really need to pick this up. We can just identify the supply areas, bro. So you guys can literally see we have like this supply area, this supply zone, right? Then we have this supply zone right here. right? And then we tapped into there with this wick. We tapped into there into this supply zone with that wick, this supply zone with that wick, and then boom, we have this supply zone, and we tapped into this wick. And so this is essentially like where our entry would be, bro. Literally right here. Like, okay, boom. We had obviously market uh, confirmed market structure, confirmed bearishness, big move to the downside. All of this imbalance, again, like these are just literally confirmations on confirmations, right? Imbalance, supply zone, and then the more we go to the to the lower time frames, now we can again like continue to identify this stuff. But for the most part, you guys get the idea, right? Like we continuously just do this, and then our entries as we go lower. I'll talk about pretty much understanding risk management and risk to rewards in tomorrow's video of the boot camp. But for now, what I just want you guys to grasp is like the entry models and things along those lines. So like for example, if we just had our entry here on the 4-hour box that we drew up on the supply zone, and we had our stop loss at that pretty much lower high, right, which is right here, and then obviously our profit target would be one of two places, okay? So it's either going to be, excuse me, so it's either going to be at the very bottom over here where our daily demand zone areas, and you guys can see like this is literally playing out, right? Or at our 4-hour demand here, right? Depending on how long you want to hold, you know, how the market's playing out, things along those lines. But a lot of the times, gentlemen, what I do is I don't necessarily like to hold market for that long. So I will target like the lows. Oh, it looks like my computer's going to die soon. But I will target the lows here. And the reason for that is because after these lows are taken, really, who knows if the market would like to come back in here, maybe sweep some liquidity, you know, take out some highs or something that we maybe have resting in here. And this is where you come more so into like trade management. I don't want to get too deep into that, but for the most part, I always like to just target the lows, especially when I have like lower time frame entries on like the 15-minute or the 5-minute, right? But even doing this, guys, on the lower time frames, right? If we were just identify like an entry on the 15-minute, right? Again, doing that top-down analysis, what do we see here, right? We can pretty much see, guys, that we have, you know, this bullish structure, right? Boom, boom, higher high. And then what do we see? We see the breaking down in the shift of price, right? And so where do we see that shift happen? Pretty much in all these areas as it breaks down to the downside, as it distributes, right? And so then all of a sudden we go from having like a 45 pips or 48 pip stop loss to then again just becoming more specific. We go to a 27 pip stop loss. You know, we target these lows, 2.7, basically 3 to 1. That's the minimum that I will have to look for before even thinking about entering a position is 1 to 3. But we'll talk about that in another video. If we target this daily demand 6 to 1, you know, if we target that 4-hour demand 10 to 1, right? And those are not unrealistic fucking gains. Like with the way I trade, guys, it's more than possible to hit that like consistently. It all just comes down to how long do you like to hold your positions, how well are you managing them, things along those lines, right? But you can see like the top down analysis. Now, you know, pretty much going into a little bit deeper levels of understanding and thinking, right? Another great way, if you guys didn't go watch like basic price action in the boot camp, where I talk about this a lot, where we have liquidity, right? We have equal highs in understanding, you know, where money's resting. But basically, you know, like identifying liquidity before we have, or in the process of the distribution happening, right? Or price action just playing out, right? Where we have money resting, you know, in areas before that they essentially get swept. And this is again what you call like liquidity sweeps and things along those lines. Then you'll see this on every single time frame. Same goes over here, right? Where we had this supply zone over here. And what do we see here? We pretty much see in this area, here, and here, all this money, right? That then gets swept, and then we see the breaking down. Same goes here at the bottom, right? All this money and for then this to be targeted to get swept, right? And then you see it on every on every single pretty much entry of ours, right? Where you have these equal highs, you have this money resting, and what happens again is it gets taken out, push into these areas, and then boom, the breaking down of price, right? And then boom, we talk about also trendline liquidity, right? Boom, to target, and then boom, take all that money out. Like there's pretty much everything I talk about in all the previous days of the boot camp, we are literally just finding on the charts now, right? And so, boys, hopefully that gave you guys some more insight into really the entry model, confirmations as far as understanding market shifts, understanding liquidity, it being swept, right? And then the break structure, just the price action really of it all, whether it's an accumulation, whether it's a distribution, and just waiting for market to come to our zones that we've marked out, in our supply zones, our demand zones, and then targeting, again, the same exact thing, those zones, and equal highs, equal lows, understanding that those areas are magnets, essentially, of price that we talked about in the previous day of the boot camp. So, gentlemen, with that being said, that pretty much sums up this video. Go do your homework, go identify some of the entries and things along those lines. Go do your chart time with literally everything that we kind of broke down in this video for yourself, so that you can learn, so that you can expand your knowledge and your experience in trading. Make sure you guys check out the free Discord where we literally just sent out today's position, bro, for AU. Beautiful 1 to 3 hit in like 7 minutes. Again, we literally made like a couple $100 in the span of 7 minutes, bro. So with that being said, boys, love each and every single one of you guys, and I will see you in the next video.